Hello everyone, Eric the Racket Scientist here, and welcome back to another gripping episode. If you watched my last episode where I did my Brave Sword 12, then you probably were expecting this episode that I was going to grip the other racket that I featured at the end of the episode, which was the Brave Sword 10. And so if you did watch that, you may notice that this does not in fact look like a Brave Sword 10. And yeah, so I definitely just did a bait and switch, so sorry about that, but not actually sorry because, you know, this is my life and you don't get to tell me what to do. So this was not a planned purchase, this just happened to show up. This was a racket that I was planning on acquiring sometime this year, but probably later, possibly from Taiwan. And what we have here is a pair of Auraspeed Hypersonic. So right now, if you're watching this, you're probably familiar with the Auraspeed HS Plus, which is the flagship racket of the Auraspeed series, a racket that a few pros were using. It's Hendra Setiawan's last racket of choice before retirement. To my knowledge, Nur Izzadin from Malaysia also uses this racket, and there are obviously a lot of recreational amateur players out there who use that racket. Now, what some people may not know is that the HS Plus was, well, first of all, the HS stands for hypersonic, and second of all, it was not the first hypersonic, and that would be this one. So this is not the HS Plus, this is just the HS, so it's not like the HS Plus is a second variation model or something. They're distinct models, and they are both high-end rackets, so it's not like the DriveX Metallic and DriveX 10X Metallic, where the DriveX Metallic C, the one I had, was a kind of a lower end version. This was like a flagship racket. This was a top of the line Auraspeed racket, but it got replaced with the HS Plus, which is a different racket. So it's not, it is a distinct model. I mean, I guess you could argue that plus, HS Plus, right, is kind of an evolution. Anyways, yeah, so I plan to acquire this later in the year along with an HS Plus to compare the two. And then this popped up, a friend was selling a pair of these for a good price that I couldn't pass up. And so I decided to take my chance to pick these up. And as you can see, much more colorful than the HS Plus. I personally really like this color scheme. It's pretty cute, really cool. So let's get to it. Hopefully this will be short. I might do both of these in the same video because from what it looks like, the undergrip has already been taken off on both. And so we probably won't have too much work. Okay, see some cushion wrap here. That's cool. A little bit of a chaotic, I don't know if you noticed, the grips on these are a little chaotic. They're gripped to different lengths and also little, you know, I'm not going to call them out too hard because they did me the favor of selling me these rackets, so I'm not going to, you know, but so we're just going to enjoy, we're just going to grip this and enjoy, so. Now you'll notice that even though the end cap is a solid blue, these rackets both have free core handles. And one thing that I was curious about, so if you watched my Husky Open vlog, you'll know that I talked to Sean a little bit, the stringer, Love All Play stringing team. He's very knowledgeable. A Taiwanese guy, very knowledgeable about rackets and stringing. And he had told me at that tournament, I think this was a bit that I don't remember if I kept it in or not, but there was a bit where I asked what common rackets he got to string at Husky Open. And one of the things he said was obviously Yonex Astrox 100ZZ. He also said that the HS Plus was a common racket for him to see. And I thought that was interesting. Now, yeah. So I remember talking to him and, looking on some forums and stuff about this racket. Okay, I was curious about it. And when I was in Vancouver last, I went by Yumo. They actually also had this racket. They were selling it, but it wasn't at a price where I was willing to buy it. Just because, Victor rackets are more expensive in North America than they are in, if you can get them in Taiwan or China, much cheaper. And so they had this racket there, the original Hypersonic. And I asked the guy if he knew anything about it. And so one thing that seems to be pretty ubiquitous about comparing the HS Plus and the original HS is that the HS, this racket, is a little more easy to use. So it's like a little less heavy, and from what I understand, the shaft is more forgiving as well. It's a little on the softer side. And well, I won't be able to confirm this until I get one in my hand, but it's possible that the head may be a different size too, because I remember the HS Plus has like a pretty small head, but this one doesn't seem that small. So we will see about that once I get my hands on an HS Plus. Now, the guy at Yumo, when I asked him about this racket, he said he hadn't used this personally, this racket. He had not used this racket personally. But he said that he knew a lot of people who actually got the HS Plus who used this original HS racket. And he said that every single one of them, he said every single one of them preferred this original HS to the new one. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because again, he said there was a lot of those people who transitioned from this original racket to the new one. So it's hard to say because, obviously if you like the old one and the new one's different, then you're probably going to prefer the original one, right? Just makes sense that you prefer, like, similarly to how people who like the original, I don't know, NanoFlare 700 Pro just prefer the original and they don't really like the new one all that much. Kind of the same thing, right? We don't like change, but at the very least, you can conclude that if people are so insistent about liking this racket and sticking by it, then it must have some merit behind it, I guess you could say. So with that in mind, definitely going into this with a bit of a curious, and I actually have got some court time with these. I hit with them a little bit yesterday when I picked them up, and I don't know that I have enough data that I can kind of have an evaluation yet, because I just warmed up with them and I was mainly just hitting around. I didn't play a game with it, and I also, the strings on this are not something that suits my preferences. This is a very soft string setup. Yeah, this is NBG 99 at I think 27 pounds. So I prefer something a little harder. I would definitely want to put my preferred Ultimax on this and see how that goes. But I mean, aside from that, like just from handling characteristics and shaft response, I must say that so far it seems like a very appealing racket to me, a very familiar racket. Like just based on the little bit of hitting around that I did, it strikes me as a relatively it strikes me as relatively even balance and a medium stiff, which is like very much kind of what I like to play with. There's a lot of the rackets that I have been using lately kind of fall into that category, or like to use. So we'll see about that. So I mean, so most of this handle is clean, but the by default nowadays Victor puts a little bit of adhesive tape both at the top and the bottom. They don't do the whole handle anymore, which is nice. And so that was left on here, and as you can see, here's another reason why we'll clean off grips even though it's a free core handle, is because you get this stuff, it all sticks. So for those of you asking why I go through the effort of really cleaning up these handles even if they're free core, this is why. You just do it once properly, you never have to worry about it again. It's kind of interesting. I haven't actually heard too much feedback about the HS Plus. I know a lot of people who use or have used the, for example, Yonex flagship rackets like 1000Z or 100ZZ, whatever, but I actually don't know too many people who have the HS Plus. I have actually hit with one before. It was kind of in passing. It was my friend who lives in California, owns one, and he picked it up. And I hit around with it. And my first impression was like a very solid feeling. Like it was very demanding, extremely, very difficult to time. But that could also be because of just the string setup. Now, I actually don't quite remember what the string setup on it was, but it could have been BG80 at 27, which would have been, you know, a pretty hard string to put on a pretty demanding racket, so that could have been it. And it was also like a gym conditions that I'm not necessarily that used to, so all those things combined just kind of made it such that I felt like, oh man, this is kind of rough, right? I didn't hit around with it that much. I didn't play a game with it, so we'll see. So definitely want to get my own hands on it so I can make my own evaluation with my setup. Honestly, pretty good workout for the fingers just because you have to spend so much time scrubbing. It becomes quite annoying, honestly. Keep your nails trimmed, fellas. You never know where you're going to need to stick those fingers. God knows, you know, sometimes needing to stick your fingers in places is more important than being able to regrip your rackets. Yeah, the one thing I don't like about the free core end caps is like all these little divots and stuff. Like the adhesive just always gets stuck in. All right, I think I'm just gonna do the second one before I grip them both, since we're already here. All right, so this one gonna have the same, you know, over grip, second layer grip, and then, oh, surprise, surprise, this one still has the under grip on it. That's interesting. So we're gonna have fun taking that off. Honestly, maybe I prefer that to having like the adhesive left on and then someone putting the cushion wrap over that, because the cushion wrap just makes a total mess of things. So, I mean, we can time ourselves. Let's see which one it takes us less time to do. But it's also not really about the time necessarily, and about how much of a pain in the ass it is. Okay, so see, here's that tape, that double-sided tape by itself. Okay, nothing in the middle, that comes off cleanly. And then all of a sudden, you go to the end, and then there's more. Yeah? More of that. And you see some of this tape at the end, you can just, like when it's fresh and untouched, you can kind of peel some off by hand, which is why I say it's a little easier at this stage, right? Because if you put cushion wrap and then grip over it and like press down on it, then stuff gets stuck more easily. I mean, it's still not great. I still prefer the easiest ones are like what? I think it's like the Mizuno one I did was pretty easy. And then like the Yonex ones are easy because they're not clean when you take them off, but the adhesive just dissolves way more easily. The stuff that Yonex uses, whatever the heck that is. Oh, that's right. I think Mizuno and Gosen use like the adhesive tape that's more plasticky, so it like bonds together more easily. Like this is a little hard to tear off because it doesn't stick together that well. Like see, like I'll just kind of try to tear it off and it doesn't come off as one piece. But the Mizuno one really likes to come off as one piece, and so that makes that one easier and cleaner. Okay, so that's nice. I think this hasn't really given me that much trouble, the bottom at least. I think, yeah, that's pretty good. I'll take that. I'm noticing this racket has the same thing where there's a gap at the bottom of the end cap, and I'm starting to think that that's intentional, and I don't know if that's on my other free core rackets. I'll have to check. Yeah, so I guess I don't usually do this, but I've already been thinking of like what play style this racket would support. Actually, one thing that makes me curious for the HS Plus, at least, is whether or not anyone uses that for singles. So I don't know. So if you know, you can tell me in the comments, but I haven't been paying close enough attention. I think from Victor, the most popular singles racket right now is probably the Ryuga 2 Pro. I've seen Ryuga Metallic, obviously leads his jaw. Auraspeed Metallic, Anders Antonsen, although I think that's probably not that much of a popular choice. I actually don't see Auraspeed Metallic being used that often by pros or even recreational for that matter. I really like that racket, by the way. It is a bit demanding, I will say. One of my friends really likes that racket, but he sold it because he plays like 5-6 days a week and then cannot really sustain using a racket that demanding for like that frequency. That's a lot of badminton, by the way. Like, you know, you should try and let yourself recover if you can. And but I mean, just like as a piece of equipment, I do really like the Auraspeed Metallic. And for the record, this racket feels to me easier to play with than the Metallic. And part of it's because the Auraspeed Metallic has like a wood handle. I know there's a lot of free core handle haters out there. but I would say that I'm neutral, right? I understand the advantages and disadvantages of them, and wherever Victor chooses to use their free core handles, I respect that for the most part. I think it was appropriate for them to not use it for the Auraspeed Metallic because it kind of plays into the quick responding nature of that racket. I think that the free core handle would have kind of muted that a little bit. That being said, I think, yeah, I'm not sure. If this racket had a wood handle, I feel like it would be pretty close. But it's hard to say, obviously. You can also correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think in a brief stint before the Auraspeed Metal came out, I think Anders Antonsen may have used this racket, the Hypersonic. It could just be my memory deceiving me, though. So if I'm wrong about that, then I apologize. But I mean, that would make sense, though, right? Because, like, again, I just mentioned that I feel like these rackets kind of belong in a similar ballpark. They're both R-speed rackets, like attacking R-speed rackets, so I guess it's not that crazy of a notion. I had a really hard time coming up with what this racket handled like, though, like in comparison to another brand. So I don't believe that there's really anything in the leaning lineup that kind of feels similar. And just based on my initial testing, I want to say this kind of easy to use, even balance. I didn't really find it that difficult to hit the sweet spot either. This personality, I would say some of the closest things I could think of were maybe like the Nanoflare 700 Pro, maybe. Actually, now that I think about it, it might be closer to the Arc Saber 7 Pro. Maybe a slightly more head-heavy version of that. It's just like Yonex doesn't really make any even balance rackets anymore. I guess 7 Pro is like borderline headlight. Nanoflares are mostly headlight. I guess the higher end Nanoflares, 800 Pros, like even balance. Yeah, Auraspeed 90K2 maybe. Probably pretty similar racket. I don't know. Do I dare say that it reminds me a little bit of the Redson MG? Maybe. Possibly. Compare them back to back. But it is difficult to compare free core rackets to non-free core because it just it like changes the behavior of the shaft response so much. I guess there's also Wang Sui who uses the DriveX 10X metallic for singles, so that's also an option. I've played singles with it. It's pretty good. And I guess that would be a close to even balance, maybe even balance, slight head heavy. But the DriveX 9X would be, I think, a true even balance Victor racket. So, but I haven't tried one in quite a while, so it's hard to say. Very easy to use racket, by the way, so if you're an intermediate player watching this and you want an introductory racket from Victor, DriveX 9X is a really good option. I was pretty impressed by that. I was actually intending to buy one the same day that I ended up fatefully picking up the MG, which, you know, went on to become my racket of choice for a tournament in a lot of situations. that was actually the day that I walked into the shop intending to buy a Victor Drive X9X, and then I walked out with the Redson. So very fateful day, and I never did end up getting that Drive X9X, but kind of fell off of my priority list. I don't know if you guys knew this, but if you know about the Drive X9X and 10X, there was actually also a Drive X8X too. Not two, it just like also, like there's a Drive X8X out there. And I don't know, couldn't really find a lot of reviews on it. I was very tempted to get that one because there was very little coverage on it. So we'll see. Like, you know, if I'm doing the Drive X 10X metallic, the Drive X metallic, and if I can muster enough motivation or whatever to pick up the Drive X9X and the 8X, then maybe one of these days. No one's really gonna ask me for that though, I don't think so. I don't really know that I place a high priority on that. I will say the Drive X8X, I don't even know if it's the Drive X8 or is it Drive X8X or like what its proper name is. I will say that it looks pretty cool. I think it is kind of like a maroon color, I think, remember correctly. I think the worst part is like when I go up the whole handle with electrical tape and then find out there's like a lump somewhere. And then if that happens, like I'll undo the tape enough, try to pick out that lump with the tweezers. But if you can't get it out and mess it up, then it sucks because then I just have to redo. Well, you don't have to redo the whole thing, but it's like that's what I do, just because I always want it to be one uninterrupted piece of electrical tape, and I don't want there to be like weird layering from restarting in the middle or whatever. So it's kind of weird. Okay. Just checking for imperfections. There's always going to be cast imperfections on free core handles because, you know, they're cast plastic in a mold, so there's always going to be like seams or whatever. And if you really want to, you can sand them down. And like with how particular you guys know I am with my rackets, you might be surprised to know that I don't sand them down. Like that's where I draw the line. It's because like, well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One's because I'm afraid, like when you take sandpaper to a handle, you need to be really careful because sanding kind of quote unquote attacks the highest raised portions, right, of the surface that you're sanding. And so it'll get the imperfections. But if you're not very disciplined with your sanding, you're going to like accidentally sand the bevels too. And that's kind of like irreversible damage. So you definitely want to be very careful with that. And the only time I would specifically sand a handle is if there was, for example, like the wood grain and then there was a knot in the wood grain or like some sort of natural wave in the grain. And I've seen that. Actually, my if I ever regrip my leading Axe Force 100, I'll show you that because the handle actually has an undulation in it in the wood grain. I've taken a picture of it. And I think without the electrical tape and without the grip, it is noticeable, but like with the grip and electrical tape, thankfully it's not really noticeable. But like stuff like that can happen, right? And I think if I had like a more extreme version of that, I think I would try to sand it down. But I would use like a block, so to make sure that I wouldn't sand down the bevels accidentally. The thing with the imperfections in the plastic is that you can kind of see them. If I reflect the light here, you can see like right there, for example, that's a seam for casting. You can see it because it's shiny and it's in the light, but those imperfections are really small enough to where the electrical tape and the cushion wrap are going to be able to cover for those. So that's actually not that big of a deal. So it's going to be fun to weigh these two together. They look basically identical now. It's very pleasing. Now the real question is, do I have two of these left, or is this just one left? It's just one. Very tragic. All right, I got to get grips from my bag. That's pretty tragic. I just realized that I've completely run out of the yellow grips. So this is my last one, and I don't want to put two different grips on a pair, so I'm going to save that. And we're going to go back to this blue color, which is a color that I used to use a lot. I will say this is actually probably my favorite grip color that's really commonly commercially available. There's some others I like. I think pink is cool too, actually. Maybe I should get a pink reel of pink grip next. That sounds like a good idea. Yeah, people really make fun of me for leaving the cushion wrap hanging off the end of the handle, and then and they have grips looking like absolute nightmares. So it's like, haha, yeah, I leave my cushion wrap hanging off the end, but like maybe take a look in the mirror first. So oh, would you look at that? I actually have a lot of blue left. Here's another one. I really haven't used that much, huh? I managed to use up the whole yellow reel. I have a lot of blue left over. And I have maybe 4 or 5 of the white one left as well. So we'll see. I actually don't... I think this goes pretty well with the nature of the racket. It's not quite the same blue. But that's fine, I guess. Actually, now that I think about it, these like bags of grips. Because maybe in the last episode, I think I said those are bags of like 60 grips. I think maybe they are 30, and like this full reel of this is 15, because 30 is a lot. So I'm not actually sure anymore. Because I'm mostly just incredulous that I managed to finish the yellow one. The yellow one was actually the last one I bought, but I've just been using yellow the most often for the, as some would say, the pure feeling of the grip. But yeah, gotta go find a pink one. It's pink. Ooh. Perfecto. Okay, and let us do the second one as well. Put that over here. Yeah, honestly, I don't actually see too much of a point to keeping these in my bag because, like, I always do this at home, right? I think it seems pretty normal for people to keep grips in their bag. But if you think about it, it's not like really a piece of equipment that just fails suddenly and then you need in the moment usually, right? Like some people are like, oh, I'm at the court and need to regrip. I always maintain my grips religiously at home, right? I almost never encounter a situation where I'm out there at the club and I'm just like, oh shit, I forgot to regrip. No, that's because I check before I even put them in my bag without fail every single time. So I'll tell you what it is. The main reason I keep grips in my bag is for other people so I can like hand them grips because a lot of you folks out there don't grip your rackets as much as you should. Which is fine. But like it's always funny to me when they're like, oh, badminton's expensive and they talk about expensive $200 rackets and stuff and like grips are by far the cheapest piece of equipment. So like dudes really be having a $200 racket and refuse to spend like $1.50 or maybe $2 on a grip to improve their whole racket is, I guess, the meme. Which is a pretty good meme. Maybe I'll post that on Instagram. So don't steal my idea if I upload this video before I make that meme. Yeah. All right, well, so one of these I'm definitely going to string with Ultimax. I don't know if I should try a different string on the second one since I have a pair. Again, I only planned on buying one, but it was such a good deal for the pair, I couldn't pass it up, so. Yeah, we'll see. And, I mean, again, just from swinging it around, I must say that I really like how this thing plays. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode where I hopefully will have that Brave Sword 10 for you, but might pull another trick on you. We'll see. Okay, thanks for watching.